Hey, this is Mike Gingerich, and it's time for another Live with Mike. You know that every week we come around here and we try to deliver you some goodness, some digital social media things that are going to be relevant, helpful to you as you navigate, as you market, as you run your small business and use the web. So I want to dive in today with a couple topics. Number one, just a little bit of background. I'm getting ready to speak twice in the month of May here on at conferences. So the second week of May, which is actually coming up here, I'm heading to Clearwater Beach, Florida for the ROI 2018 conference, where I get to speak on using social media to grow your law practice. So that's a conference for lawyers. Looking forward to being there and outside Tampa area in Clearwater Beach, and talking specifically to lawyers in that realm of what they can do in terms of using social media. Second one is after that, I'm going to Indianapolis to speak to the U.S. Indoor Sports Association. So this is an association of all those that have sports facilities in the U.S. You know, maybe they run basketball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, soccer tournaments, those big entities where a lot goes on underneath the roof, plus their fitness activities, aerobics, weightlifting, training, all those kinds of pieces. So it's an opportunity to speak with them about how they can use social media to market their business. So looking forward to those and getting to fly around a little bit in May here. As I've prepared for that, one of the things that I've come back to again and again, I'm gonna use, and I'll test this with you guys. You can let me know if this works. I'm going to use a theme from triathlons, because if you know me, you know that I do triathlons, swim, bike, run, and gearing up for the season here. It's basically a summer season for me based on where I live there, so I can do triathlons. First one is in June in Philadelphia, so looking forward to those. But I'm going to relate triathlons to social media, and here's the point. The point is that I cannot just focus on one of the disciplines and train in that discipline and expect to do well in all three disciplines of the triathlon. Example, I'm a runner by background. I do a lot of running there, and I cannot simply just do my training in running, and that enable me to swim well and bike well. I'm going to have a bad triathlon if that's the case. How that translates across the bridge is that you cannot just say, I'm going to do well at Facebook, and whatever I have on Facebook, I'm going to send that same thing to Twitter and to Instagram or whatever it is. That doesn't work. So you can't just focus on one and assume it's going to help you in the others. I have to take some time. Now, swimming for me is the weakest sport of the three disciplines there, and but it takes some technical work, because I have to work on the specific strokes. Okay, so there's nothing in running that really prepares me for the breaststroke that I need to be able to do, the freestyle. And so I need to spend some time in the pool. That is specific to being a good swimmer in a triathlon. And that's what it is with social media. There's going to be specific things that I need to do on Twitter. And I'm going to actually talk about those in a second there. Now, at the same time, though, there is some common benefits. My swimming helps my endurance, okay, which helps me in the run. My swimming is a full body workout, which can help me in the biking, just in the sitting posture that I have to do. So there's some crossover. There's some things that do apply. And particularly like with triathlons, I do a lot of weight training, strength training, and that type of thing, aerobic training. So I'm not running, I'm not biking, I'm not swimming. I'm doing weights and aerobic fitness, and that helps me prepare for all of the events, and it helps. Some of the weights I do are specific to one event. So again, related to social media, that helps you think through what you need to do. There can be overarching things, such as using Agorapulse or Hootsuite, Buffer app, those types of pieces to manage, multiple social media accounts within one venue. Okay, that type of thing, and you can pull in from some of those sources, an RSS feed, from your blog post. So that's finding some ways to get some information in there that is the same, but then what you want to do is customize that information for the specific platform, okay? And what you share on Instagram, it's going to have to be a picture or video, and it's not going to have a clickable link in it, and the hashtags are going to be important, that type of thing. Where on Facebook, and so there might be some crossover, because you might be able to do a 1-minute video that you can use on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram, okay? But if it's longer than that, it's not going to work, because that can work on Facebook, but it doesn't work on Instagram, for example. So that's how I'm going to talk about it in the sessions. Is you got to know the platforms, you got to know what works on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. There are some commonalities, things that you can apply to get engagement. Video is working well, that's across the board. Photos work better than just text, that's across the board. However, you need to specialize for that platform. So that's what I'm going to do in these upcoming speaking events. Does that analogy work? Can I use that? Let me know. All right. And now, more specifically with that, one of the things that I want to talk about is a tool that's helped me identify some of ways that I can improve what I'm doing. And I was introduced to this tool by Madeline Scalar, who is a social media marketing pro, Twitter pro, really, down in Houston, Texas area. And she introduced me to a Twitter Assistant. And Twitter Assistant is by the folks at Union Metrics. So if you search for Union Metrics Twitter Assistant, you're going to find this tool. And they have a free tool within there that helps analyze a little bit of what you're doing with Twitter and gives you some feedback on ways that you can improve, things that are happening. So, for instance, my top performing tweets in the past week, I can get a picture of that. But what I liked is it told me where I can improve, and the thing that it told me that I can improve on is using hashtags in my tweets. Okay, simple, makes sense. Hashtags work on Twitter. They do not work on Facebook. They are important on Instagram, but it's a different platform. So I need to be aware that when creating tweets from my content on Twitter to use relevant hashtags. There's no reason not to now with 280 characters, that type of thing. But it's a specific tip that works well on that platform. Now, again, hashtags can work on Instagram as well. They can be different hashtags, so you need to be aware of those types of pieces. So I'm going to be starting to increase my use of hashtags on Twitter based on this information, taking a look at that, not just adding one, not just adding two, maybe it's going to be 3 or 4 that are relevant and that will help me in that. So I want to introduce that tool to you that is Twitter Assistant by Union Metrics. So you can go take a look at that. But the final thing, and the bulk of what I wanted to spend time on today in this quick power time, is the GDPR that's coming up here in late May 2018. May 25th is the implementation of that. So we're going to talk about what it is, what it means, and what you need to do to prepare for that. So got my notes ready to go. I'm going to move my camera just so that I can see my screen there and go through some things that I don't want to miss about this. So obviously this is a European Union implementation or law that is coming into effect on May 25th, as I mentioned there, and it's going to impact a lot of businesses, a lot of marketers, and it's just something to be aware of that is key. Okay. Yeah. Well, I lost my place there, so hang on a second. Okay. General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. That's what it stands for. I want to make sure I got that right for you. It's a European Union privacy law that is going into effect related to personal data, meaning any piece of data that is used alone or with other data that could identify a person. So pretty broad, and they're making it a little. That's the intent of this, is to make it broad and to give people power over how their data is used and to know what the purpose of that data is. So it is replacing an older directive, and it will impact US-based businesses. So that's what I'm talking about. Don't just write it off because you're not in the European Union. This can impact it, and I'm going to go into some of those details. So, for example, if you have an online store and you want to market and you potentially sell to someone overseas, if you are trying to market to someone in France specifically, then this applies to you. Now, how are they going to know if you are doing that? They're potentially the content on your website, but they'll take a look at things like, do you allow people to pay with the euros, as currency? If so, it's going to apply to you. Do you have a language changer on your site that has French? Then they're going to assume this applies to you. So it's not for generic things. So here's one piece of information I found. The organization would have to target. You have to target a subject for this to apply to you. So generic, you're going to be okay. So this is a little bit maybe of the gray area. So a Dutch user in the Netherlands who uses Google and finds your website and signs up to get a ebook. Okay, that is not necessarily falling underneath this because you didn't try to target them. You weren't trying to reach them with an ad. You didn't offer that specifically in Dutch language, and you didn't offer the euros as a currency if it was a paid type thing. So that's some of this area of what it applies to. But for e-commerce, for those selling courses, for those selling ebooks, books, things that someone can buy and they're going to take a look. Another way they can look at this is your shipping. Do you ship to European Union nations, France, Germany, Spain, those type of pieces there? So that's a way that compliance will be looked at to see. Now, so let's just say that it does apply to you. That's what I want to run through. So hopefully that gives you a kind of a basis of what it is and how it might apply. But then now what do you have to do if it does apply? If you do have an e-commerce, you do sell something that way, you do target them on occasion, people in other countries for marketing purposes, then it says you need to have a legal basis to process a European Union citizen's personal data. So it's going to mean that you have some systems in place, both on your website and outside of your website, things that you would do, because it's trying to protect the individual's rights. And now what they say is that it's supposed to help all of us because the law will create a more trusting relationship between you and your contacts. They know what to expect, what you can do with their information, and there's more clarity in that. So it empowers the user, the personal individual, a lot with information. And now the case is, what can you do with data that you process on your website? So what you're going to need to start doing if you have e-commerce, that type of thing, when you have a form, maybe they're making a purchase, or maybe this is a pop-up for marketing purposes, some type of thing that lead capture type thing, but is geared towards somebody in the European Union. You're going to have a description that says why you're collecting the information on your form and what it's specifically for. Okay. Then you have to give them checkbox options to get consent that they must check. And tools like I use MailChimp a lot. MailChimp will provide these types of form activities, okay, so that you must clearly communicate what they're opting into, so that those have to be checkboxes. They cannot be automatically checked. They have to be able to check that checkbox. And then you have to provide legal text. And From my understanding, this is more than what we've had before, where you could just have a link to terms kind of thing. But you need to explain more about how you want to use the contact's data. You give a statement there, and then it may lead to a fuller statement on this. There's kind of the cookies, describes any cookies or tracking technologies you might use on your website. And you need to have a privacy policy in terms that's specific. This is non-editable. Lets the contacts know that you'll be storing their information and their name and email address. And then you have to have a method of giving them access to the information you have on them and how you are using that, and an easy way for them to get off that if they want to. So you have to have those kind of systems, policies in place for that. So that's GDPR. So where it comes into for websites and web marketers is just kind of know your audience. If you're a regionally US-based business targeting a region, then this is probably not going to apply to you. You're okay outside of that, because it says if somebody from Netherlands finds your site and opts in to get your free ebook, hey, you weren't targeting them. You're not under any obligation there to go through this full GDPR. But if you are e-commerce, and if you're doing ebooks, if you have books, if you have coaching, things like that, that someone from the European Union could opt into, and you're accepting euros as a currency, or you're using advertising that is targeting those specific people in those specific nations, then this applies to you, and you have to get those pieces in place. If you don't get them in place, there's things that they say they can fine you and that type of thing. We have to wait and see what all that shakes down to be. I'm not giving you full legal advice, so this is just my opinion based on what I've read here, and you should consult with proper legal authorities if you want to go into this further and figure out if this is going to apply more specifically to you. But I want to go into those things to let you know, the web's changing. You have to keep up with these things. So that's my goal, is to keep you informed and up to date. And that was it. So again, those are the 3 things for today. Is social media is not a once and done, one size fits all type thing. Just like I cannot just do running or biking and expect to do well in a triathlon. I need to practice in all 3 disciplines, swim, bike, and run. Getting ready to do that. And the tool I gave you was Uniometrics Twitter Assistant. Okay, so take a look at that to give you some ideas. You plug that in, it gives you some results. It analyzes your Twitter account and will give you some feedback on ways you can improve. So I recommend that. And then hopefully this gives you some insight into the GDPR and general data protection, and whether you need to conform to that, whether that's going to apply to you or not. So that's where I wanted to go today. My time is up. Trying to keep these short, trying to keep them snappy, trying to help you with information. That's it for today. As always, I appreciate you. Leave me a comment, leave me a question, and come on over if you want to listen to this again on podcast. You can subscribe to me on iTunes and find me in the Android store by searching Halftime Mike. That will give you these type of episodes and information. So with that, over and out. Take care. Have a good one.